Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info coming at you after the conclusion of the first race at Richmond. I thought we were only having one race at Richmond this year, but that's definitely something else to discuss during tonight's show. But the spring race at Richmond here with Denny Hamlin, hometown hero, getting his first victory single-handedly, turning around what has been a pretty miserable start to the year for both him and the Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, even though the other Toyota teams, such as 2311, were a bit off the pace this year, besides some good runs from Kurt Busch. Unfortunately, Busch ends up being more of a factor on my end of the aisle than he was for the battle for the lead. Yeah, you know, again, I know that I can sense already that there's going to be a lot of discussion about this one, not for the exact same reasons as the first few races. I think all of us were probably expecting coming into, after all the races we've seen, and of course another first-time winner just last week, we were probably going to have our first race where the next-gen car was not exactly going to put on that different of a show from the Gen 6 car, and really understanding the limitations of this car. Now, at the same time, I think that while this may have not been, the most, thrilling race in a traditional sense, in terms of like, if it has a lot of, you see all these ads and it's like, oh, it's going to be a lot of crashes, or it's going to be a lot of passing here and there and so forth. The strategy, I think, was definitely fascinating in this, especially in the later stages. I think too often with the Gen 6 car, when you had a long race like this with a lot of long green flag runs, there wasn't really a chance for anybody to work their way through the pack and try to catch the leader. It seemed like the tire drop-off was not enough to actually kind of play into that factor. And, we have races where, people are out for multiple second leads. Guys like Brad Keselowski usually dominate this event. Guys like Denny Hamlin, very much in the same sense here. And I think on the surface, one would probably see these results and say, oh, well, Denny Hamlin won the race. I guess it wasn't very competitive, but quite the opposite. I think the tire strategy, especially in the third stage, was fascinating, and seeing just how much of a difference we were having. I don't think that qualifies as the rest of the race being necessarily the most exciting one, certainly compared to the few races that we've had before it. But I do think that, I think it was promising to see. I think it's really exciting when you have somebody charge through the pack. And being able to kind of work out a strategy to try to catch somebody. Certainly William Byron seemed to have the race pretty well in hand in the last 30 or 40 laps. And given how quickly the race had been going by to that point, Byron himself seemed like he was pretty confident he was going to be able to pull off the victory there. However, drivers like Martin Truex and then Denny Hamlin and even Kevin Harvick as well were able to be a factor in this one and kind of play off each other. A lot of this race also reminded me of the Truck Series opener at Daytona this year, where I remarked on Twitter that I didn't believe that the broadcasters were entirely prepared for this kind of race. That they were ready for, a race that was going to have a lot of big crashes, green, white, checker finishes. And while that race certainly did have it, it was kind of the exception, really, when it came down to the last couple of laps and having the really quick reflexes by the starter to get the race to be pushed into overtime. I think for most of that race, it was a lot like this Richmond race, where you had a lot of strategy, you had a lot of drivers positioning themselves, and guys being able to be, competitive at different times. And I do think that's another thing that, these broadcasts have kind of fallen out of because they haven't seen it that often. It's very unusual to get a race that plays out this, especially with the stages being structured in there. But the way it played out, I think it kept things interesting. I do think that the broadcast in general, I think, to kind of go ahead and go off on this tangent here, I thought they did a decent job, especially on explaining the issue with the tape on the grill for Kyle Busch's team. Because I think that hasn't really, it came up as a rule over the offseason, but even Jeremy Mayfield was confused about it coming into this, although he reported this was the first Cup race he'd been watching in quite some time. I thought that Chad Knaus and Larry McReynolds in particular did a great job of actually breaking down why that's an issue this year. And why this is, why this is something that's not allowed anymore, and the structural effect of that. I think that where this broadcast, I think, fell a bit short was, again, more on the directional side with the cameras. A lot of quick cuts, a lot of tight shots, a lot of and a lot of shots that really didn't help you see what was happening. I think a lot more of tracking intervals, a lot more, using as few cuts as possible, as few onboard shots as possible, would have made it much easier to track who was catching William Byron and how fast they were. It seemed like by the time somebody else was being able to be mentioned to be a competitor, certainly in the case of Denny Hamlin and even Truex before that, wasn't until they were pretty much in the same frame as William Byron. It would have been much more exciting if the announcers and everybody else was kind of focusing much more on, who was able to kind of reel in the drivers and show that interval and track it a lot more and kind of take on a different approach there, knowing that this race is having these longer green flag runs. I feel like we saw this a bit in the Xfinity race yesterday too, where you had a literal side-by-side battle, and most of that finish was shown on onboard cameras where, you can see what the interval is, but it's not the best shot to show it from. It's again, quick cuts, shots that are way too tight, and really hard to kind of get a full view of what's actually happening, for what in that case was also a very good finish for a race that was also not all that competitive or maybe traditionally as wild as some of the other events that we've seen earlier this year. But I can say that there was some progress. I was very quick to, I do think that in the Xfinity race, and I'll talk about this on the Saturday broadcast as well, I think that there was still, the call was a little bit, on the flatter side, but re-listening to the finish of the race, I thought that Adam Alexander did a decent job with that part of the broadcast. Maybe not, but again, I think that I sense that there's still a little bit of a disjoint there, where, we're told that a lot of these broadcasters are watching the race from the booth and they got the best view of it, where it seems like on the other end of it, they're usually just kind of responding to what we're seeing on the screen, and that's it. And when you have these tight shots, when you have these trick shots used in there, that ends up being a pretty limiting view of what's actually happening. And it's very hard to track a race like this, or even the race yesterday, with that strategy. Maybe it's really good when there's a lot of crashes, a lot of, bumping and banging going on. Maybe it worked really well at something like the Bristol Dirt Race or a super speedway event. But at a short track, and especially Richmond's always had this issue where I feel it seems like the directors always have the hardest time figuring out how they actually want to show this race off and show how competitive it is. I think that we only see just a fraction of it. I'd love to actually cover that race in person and just see how different it is, because I always sense, similar to kind of Dover as well, that I think that we're missing a whole lot of what we're not seeing. I'm glad that they were able to adjust well enough to track drivers like Truex getting up there, and then Denny Hamlin, and then Kevin Harvick. But it seemed like, they needed to kind of be ahead of it a little bit more, instead of describing what was happening in the abstract, actually describing what was literally happening in that moment. And I think that was going to be something else to kind of work with that. So, and this is to make no mention of the pre-race show as well, which I actually didn't watch. I didn't tune into this until the cars were already rolling on pit road. But I'm hearing about this Saturday Night Live kind of sketch here with the talking watermelon seed and all that. I didn't see that, thankfully, and I think, the more irrelevant they're making these pre-race shows, perhaps we'll get back to the format where the broadcast just starts either when the drivers have already fired their engines, or maybe 10 minutes before that. And we just kind of go with that. If they want to deliberately make these pre-race shows pretty much worthless, which in a lot of ways they kind of are, to be honest, because the internet already does most of the heavy lifting in terms of people being updated on new storylines that happen each week, and things of that matter. The only difference is in access, and talking to some of these drivers and which analysts you bring on board. But yeah, if they're just gonna be goofing around, then, that's just, I still think that's kind of wasted time there. But that's a whole other issue with that too. Beast of Metal, thank you for the super chat there. First off, NASCAR calling out a star, Rowdy, and a mega team, Joe Gibbs Racing, for a rules violation. Good on paper. Waiting 200 laps to do it on an easily visible violation is blatant race manipulation. Hashtag Tapegate. Yeah, well, I guess we got to talk about that one too. That's probably a good place to start as any. Yeah, that whole tape situation. And again, I liked that they explained it really well. I think that Chad Knaus was really strong with that. But yeah, it does make you wonder, dovetailing with what I was saying earlier. How much of NASCAR's response to that tape issue on Kyle Busch was because it was being shown a lot more on camera by the Fox cameras, and how much of it was, NASCAR just not noticing it and then suddenly noticing it conveniently at that exact same moment? I'm more willing to believe the former. I think that I think there is probably a little bit of manipulation that goes on between the booth and NASCAR officiating, that maybe if they don't catch something right away, the booth is able to kind of direct things that way. Sometimes it's to a benefit. I think most famously, if you go back to 1979 and you have, the crash between Donnie Allison and Cale Yarborough in the corner, and you got Ken Squire in the booth literally trying to point the cameras to where the cars are. And I guess, I don't know what NASCAR officials radio sounded like during that too, but I'm sure they were probably having trouble tracking those intervals even back then. Sometimes it can be helpful in that sense. Other times I think that, maybe sometimes they focus on something a lot and then NASCAR takes notice of it and you hear their response like, wait a minute, that tape, what's that doing there? While I do think it was a good teachable moment to show why they don't allow tape on these cars anymore, since these cars are so completely dependent on how the air circulates through the cars. The fact that they let that sit for 200 laps, that's absurd. They have any number of cameras. If they're able to constantly track when so much as like somebody steps out in front of a car too soon, a pit crew member does, or a tire is just a little bit loose in their pit stall, they catch that instantly. Pit road is probably the most photographed part of the track. Even more, cameras are pointed at it from NASCAR than probably the networks have to point at the track itself to actually do the broadcast. Any little thing they can catch, and especially if you have a little orange fleck of tape there that clearly does not look like a piece of debris, like in the case of I think Chris Buescher and some of the other ones they were showing. If they wanted to really do something about that, I think they could have caught that a lot sooner. I do think that they probably didn't take as proactive of an approach there, and probably waited until the TV broadcast pointed out, and then suddenly it's an issue. It's unfortunate. But yeah, that's a whole other situation with that. I hate it for Kyle Busch. It seemed like he was having a good run going. I'm sure he was looking to have a good run as any to keep going with Denny Hamlin's strong run, and especially with Toyota sponsoring this race and putting as much money into it as they have. It seems like this is usually a good time for one of the Toyota teams to get up there and be competitive. But unfortunately didn't shake out that way. And I'm sure Kyle was none too pleased about that over the radio. Seemed like Ryan Blaney was about to give Kyle Busch kind of the competition for the radio sweetheart from this broadcast as well. I wasn't listening to his channel as much, even though he was kind of my fantasy pick for the race. But it seemed like a lot of the tweets indicating his frustration with lap traffic was really getting to the point where he was just kind of getting really upset about it. I think what's tricky is, and I think that's another thing that kind of points to how different this race played out versus even a traditional short track race, or even a traditional Richmond race, that when you have the race run this long, the lap cars you're dealing with are no longer just back markers. Although there's so little attrition that those cars are still out there. What you are now dealing with are a lot of fast cars that maybe under slightly different circumstances would be lead lap cars that you wouldn't have any problem with. Or maybe they're guys that you're just now trying to lap, kind of like guys like Tyler Reddick and so forth that were caught towards the end of that race. It's going to be frustrating. I'm not going to say the driver should be okay with it, but it probably shouldn't be so surprised about it either. Richmond last year was, in the last couple races with the Gen 6 car, had extremely low attrition. So you're going to have a ton of cars out there. And even when you have this field shortened down to just 37 starters like today, you're still going to be left with a ton of traffic out there. And this is something these drivers should be used to. Last year, Justin Haley dropped out of this race after one lap. And pretty much everybody else finished under power within 15 laps of leader. Very much the same kind of situation in the September race with Kurt Busch, of all people, being eliminated in an early crash and then having pretty much the rest of that race finish with the rest of the finishers under power. So that's kind of a different situation there, but probably nothing that's too surprising. But perhaps, and again, another indicator of something that has to be worked out there too. I'm seeing my if you missed that happen to Kyle Busch, don't worry, I taped it tweet is getting a decent number responses. I will confess, it's actually not the first time I posted that. I actually did that same tweet with Denny Hamlin at Homestead when the team panicked and put that big piece of tape on the front of the car. But it's just as good a time as any to bring that one back out. A frustrating situation there. I mean, that's a terrible way to lose a race, especially when you've done already everything else you need to do. You're still trying to figure out this new car. I do think there's still a separation between the drivers that are coming up here, like your Ross Chastains and Tyler Reddicks, that maybe were kind of okay in the Gen 6 car that are now showing up drivers, like Kyle Busch that had the Gen 6 car pretty much figured out. Look how much Kyle Larson has struggled this year, too. Guys like that. There's going to be some friction there. And I think that's going to continue really, the longer this season goes along. But yeah, I mean, once you figure that out and you're getting a good run and then you're bonked because you got a piece of tape on the nose of the car. I mean, that's an unfortunate situation. But you got to hate it for him. So at the other end of the field here, I mentioned Kurt Busch earlier. Busch, of course, looked like he was going to be your last place finisher in the race, which would have been his first last place run since Richmond last September. So thus his second in a row. Would have been the first last place run for the number 45 since Kyle Petty at Watkins Glen back in 2007. So it would have been very unusual. But Kurt had a issue with fuel pressure. Seems like a lot of these fuel pumps have been a big issue these last couple of years. I know Motorsports Business Management had several runs completely destroyed because of issues with the fuel pump last year. Coming into early this year with Greg Biffle and the New York Racing Team, they've had the same issues. Both of Greg Biffle's first starts of this year were both sabotaged by issues with the fuel pump. And apparently it seemed to be the same issue with the 45. Sounded like the team had even indicated that they were out of the race, that they were not going to be back out of there. But again, this is one big thing that I look at, and I retweet the information as much as I hear it too. I always wait for NASCAR to make that official call and say they're out of the race. Even if they've actually had a wreck and they've gone behind the wall and they're basically out, and they're out under the DVP, there's still a moment later before NASCAR actually relays that information over the radio. And I try to really kind of track that as closely as I can, because if that hasn't happened yet, for all you know, I mean, and again, unless you're at the track, it's hard to really figure this out. They could still be trying to get back out there, and that was certainly the case. So I want to give a big shout out to the 2311 team for their effort in getting Kurt back out there. They spent 108 laps, I believe, in the garage area. After just 8 laps in, the car just suddenly stalled and stopped on the back straightaway. Great effort to get back out there. And the ultimate consequence of that is they were able to pass both Greg Biffle, who had suspension issues, although it sounded like a rear gear and a gear oil issue with that car, as well as Cody Ware, who was involved in the only, serious wreck into the outside wall there, his after kind of a chain reaction in a turn 1. He got around both of them. In fact, he got around Kurt with about 40 laps, or he got around Cody with about 40 laps to spare there. So, these, I know that in the bottom 5 these days, it may not be worth that many more points. And then a win, of course, ends up becoming more valuable than those number of points anyway, which is unfortunate. But it's good to see a team still try to claw themselves back into competition. And Kurt's team doing that very much as well. And kudos to the folks over at the track as well. That were tracking that and making clear that he was still coming back out. I was definitely reminded of Ricky Stenhouse last year when I was covering Sears Point, and PRN coming over the radio and saying Stenhouse was out of the race, even though the team was actually just about to push him back out of his stall and get him back on the track. Now, in that case, Stenhouse did end up blowing an engine after that, but he not without turning a couple more laps and getting a little further in the race than he would have. And I think those are kind of interesting stories that happen at the back. But yes, unofficially, pending our post-race inspection, Greg Biffle is your last place finisher, his first last place finish since the July race at Daytona in 2008, which would have been, I believe, the second Cup race at Daytona with the car tomorrow back then. I mean, it debuted, of course, in the for the super speedways rather at the fall race at Talladega in 2007 that Jeff Gordon won, but Biffle finishing last in the July race in 2008, which I believe is almost 400 races ago, which is amazing because this was only about Biffle's, I think, 500 something start in the Cup Series here, so very unusual. Also, the first last place finish for John Cohen as a team owner, unfortunately, since 2014, back when he was the owner of the previous incarnation of the number 44 team, which was the Team Extreme Racing, which was also before that known as Team Triple X Dream Racing. It's when there are many versions of branding here, but this latest incarnation, mostly since 2018, when they were trying to get the charter from Front Row Motorsports and entering some cars at the end of that season. That was kind of the start of the New York Racing team branding from there. So I think that, as unfortunate it is for Biffle and the team finishing last, I think it's a good opportunity to actually talk a bit more about this team and this driver when they're not featured quite as much here. So I think that'll be a good opportunity here. It's really unfortunate, this one. I think, as many people pointed out, the 44 this week kind of had a neat throwback look a bit. I think it was just coincidental with the school mascot to the university that was featured on there, but it kind of looked like the Kodiak car that Rusty Wallace ran a little bit. Obviously, some significant liberties taken there with a new car and everything, but I think that was really really interesting to see. But unfortunately ends up in the last spot there. But kudos to Cohen and all that, and getting the car back out there too. I'm really pleased that they've been actually entering as many races as they have compared to some of these other part-time teams. So right now, today, I'm wearing my Money Team shirt that just came in this week. I know they weren't in this race, but I figured I'd fly their colors on this week's show here. They were, of course, in the race at COTA last weekend. But it's good to see these teams in there, not just existing, but also not just doing the Daytona 500 either, trying to run some more races. And I think Cohen's team, while they're still struggling to get some good runs, we saw them have that great run at Atlanta a few weeks ago. Yes, that was a super speedway and it had its issues of its own, but a finish is a finish, and that was a great performance out there. And hopefully they can bounce back from this one too. I don't know if they're going to run, if them running this race means they're going to run Martinsville in the Bristol Dirt Race. We're going to have to just find that out here. We're going to find that out in pretty short order, in fact, with the Martinsville weekend beginning so early, and that being our race under the lights this Saturday. Of course, the Truck Series returning on Thursday, and the Xfinity Series part of the weekend on Friday, and we'll have last car features for all three of those. The entry list storylines so far will probably still be on Thursday morning. I guess it will have to be to get ready for that before the evening's Truck Series race there as well. But again, mentioning Kurt Busch up to the 35th spot there ahead of Cody Ware and Greg Biffle. Justin Haley, who got his lap back after Kurt's issue there at the early part of the race after serving his pass through with Biffle, he ended up getting back on the lead lap. Haley still finishes in the 29th spot, 4 laps down. I was very surprised to see AJ Allmendinger, his teammate, also struggle in this race, finishing in 27th spot, right behind Bubba Wallace. A lot of drivers losing laps here, but as you would expect, of course, in a race with a long green flag run here. I believe in both races last year, the next to last car that was still finishing under power was within about 15 laps of the leader. This time around, with the exception of Kurt Busch, it's within 14 laps, which was BJ McLeod in 34th. So very close to that kind of scenario this time around. Looking further up, it was mentioned during the broadcast, a great turnaround for the Roush Fenway Keselowski team. Had it not been for Hamlin's win, I think that probably would have been a big story in this as well. Both Keselowski and Chris Buescher did as well as they did. Keselowski showing in the 13th spot, Buescher in 15th. We didn't talk on last week's show about that big penalty that Keselowski suffered. Obviously, NASCAR has made it very clear that they're not going to abide by any kind of a sleight of hand with these body panels. In my opinion, I think they've been making that pretty clear for a while. I know that Carl Long's team actually incurred a pretty heavy penalty about modifying the nose of Timmy Hill's car at Daytona. One that actually resulted in the ejection of a crew member on that one. And so they were pretty serious about that. But in this one, very heavy with the 100-point penalty, but certainly getting good runs here is a good way to kind of try to get back in there and hopefully try to find a way to rattle off some wins here to kind of position yourself for the playoffs. But now we have Denny Hamlin winning, and although Hamlin is not necessarily a surprising driver to win, never mind at Richmond, it is, however, a driver that's going to be another different winner. And so we are now, we're up to, let's see, I guess that makes it, 7 different winners here to start this off. We very nearly could have had Byron as the point leader as the first repeat winner, but we still don't have a repeater. And we go into Martinsville, where Hamlin is probably going to be pretty favored to win, as the broadcast seemed to indicate. And then the Bristol Dirt Race, Hamlin nearly won that as well last year during his battle with Joey Logano, who himself battled Daniel Suarez. So I think we could see some more dominant performances here these next couple weeks. But we're still going to be kind of figuring out the limits of this car, and I guess the limits of these tires as well. Again, I was very pleased with the tire strategy in this. I thought that made it interesting in a way that we don't usually see, even though it's not the best race out there. But I think that there's a lot of positives to glean from that as well. Austin Dillon into the top 10 there, finishing in the 10th spot. Tyler Reddick just outside of it in 12th. Looks like he got his lap back there after the last bit of an exchange there. But a good run for him. Chase Briscoe running his Phoenix winning car, finishing in the 11th spot. And then so forth down the line. First run we've seen, Ross Chastain's top 5 streak ends. He finishes in the 19th spot. The third car 1 lap down behind Joey Logano and Harrison Burton. Different kind of race played out there. Right behind him, Austin Cindric had the spin on the back straightaway. Still finished in the 20th spot. The last car 1 lap down, just ahead of Eric Almirola. 2 laps down for the Stewart-Haas injury. Looked like Almirola was going to set something up there. He's going to probably try to hold up Hamlin a bit to allow his teammate Harvick to catch up there. Whether that was intended or not, it didn't quite work out. Hamlin got under Almirola and was able to clear him, and that seemed to be the deciding factor in being able to get a big enough lead there for the win. So again, unofficially, pending post-race inspection, Denny Hamlin your winner, and Greg Biffle your last place finisher from that race. So let's jump into the Xfinity Series race as well. We'll definitely talk about that. Lord Shank Racing, thank you for your super chat there. I got your comment there. Some money for you, Brock. Thank you for the awesome vids. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for supporting this channel. I'm still working on getting you guys some more content here, not just these live streams on there, but it's been a very productive weekend, I would say. What's really helpful, I've had basically 4 scripts now up in the air. 2 of them are pending interviews that I think should get done, but I've been working on 2 other videos that won't need interviews that should be able to get done a lot quicker. One of them, I think I hinted about this last week, is a video that's going to be about covering a NASCAR silly season from the past and kind of some of the storylines that happened along the way. Another one is my anticipated video that's going to break down issues with the broadcasts stemming from the Atlanta race. That was originally going to be another short video, just like the ones that I've done before, but I think it's best to probably have this be kind of the culmination of the series. The more I've played with it, the more I've felt that it's best to kind of talk about some of the other broadcasters, some of the other issues in there, and so it may end up being a bit more of a long-form piece. Probably between the 2, that'll probably be the one that'll be done first. I think in terms of tone, that's something I'm still kind of working on with that. So I'll have looking to get those done. Again, those of you who are in the $5 and up levels of the Patreon, you'll be able to see those videos first before they go live on YouTube. And then they'll be available after that. So there are more vids on the way. But yes, Lord Shank Racing, thank you very much for your support and for tuning into the show here tonight. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be doing our trivia segment here tonight. We'll talk about and we'll jump into, the Xfinity race and whatever else happened along the way here. Also, I'll have some more information on the J.D. McDuffie book. As the book just went back into print last week. I saw a couple comments on this already here. I'm seeing Corey's comment that he got his copy, so that's excellent. Thank you for picking that up. So that book is back available. It is on Amazon for $20 now. It is revised and extended. There were several changes I wanted to make since the 2018 printing. So it is a bit longer than it was before, and was able to get some new information as well as some new interviews. I think that really kind of tied it together, as well as a new afterword with clearly updates that have happened with people involved with both McDuffie and the team that have occurred since then. Certainly wanted to mention Ima Jean's passing in there, of course, as well as even the upcoming mural that is coming together in Sanford this September. Still working out the details, hoping to be there for that unveiling as well this year. So look forward to some more information on that. I'm in the process of getting some copies myself available, so I'll be able to sign those directly. I already had a request from somebody already that I'm processing those copies with them, but I'll have some available, and I'll certainly make it aware when I have those there too. And we'll go from there. The Derek Cope book, I'm very happy with where that's been going here. I think in this next month, I'm hoping to have that submitted over to an editor and try to get that printed. It'll probably be printed on Amazon just like this one is. And we'll hopefully have some more information on that there too. I need to get the photo chapters arranged and everything, but I do think we're on the getting very close to getting that done. And I think that'll be really exciting to have there too. Hello there, Alexander, as well. We got our Brazilian fan here, so thank you for tuning in here as well. Yeah, so goodness, we're up to 65 viewers on here. Wow, I honestly didn't expect quite so many viewers today, especially after this race. I know it was getting kind of some mixed reviews from a lot of people here, but I think that makes it all the more worth certainly talking about here. But we'll definitely do that today, as well as our trivia segment. So let's go into the Xfinity Series race won by Ty Gibbs. And of course, the first thing we have to talk about from that is the move at the end of the race. Now, John Hunter Nemechek saying that driving through somebody isn't racing is a pretty funny thing for him to be saying, given what he did at Mosport to Cole Custer. I was actually kind of hoping that somebody was going to talk to Custer about his thoughts about what happened in that race. I don't know if that ever happened or not, but kudos to somebody who, if they have managed to catch that. The way that played out, I mean, Ty Gibbs is definitely a very aggressive driver, and definitely obviously the family connection with Joe Gibbs and so forth. He's going to definitely be the chosen one, to kind of work his way up the ranks here with Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm sure that with the 4-team limit in the Cup Series, there's probably already finger pointing going on about who's going to have to step aside there once Ty inevitably gets to the Cup Series. He is racking up these Xfinity wins one way or the other, whether it's last lap pass in Atlanta on Ryan Sieg, or if it's just straight dominating event. In this case, he's leading 114 laps to the 135 of John Hunter. But of course, we've seen teammates of Joe Gibbs Racing knock each other out of the way. Carl Edwards' situation with Kyle Busch there certainly comes to mind. But I think that these drivers are good at policing themselves. And if Ty Gibbs is getting to the point where, he just feels he can go in there and he can knock anybody out of the way and nothing will happen, well, I think a lot of the Cup Series veterans are going to make sure that they'll make pretty clear that they're not going to tolerate that. No matter how fast his cars are or how talented he is, that is going to be the issue. I think what was much more impressive in that Cup race, or in that Xfinity race rather, and I'm very excited to talk about this tonight, is the story of Parker Retzlaff. In the number 38 car for RSS Racing, a fantastic run. I think he practically stole the show in the Saturday race there. 3 times at least having to charge from the back of the pack into the top 10, including in the final 3 laps where he passed Brandon Jones in a Joe Gibbs Racing entry to get in the top 10 and finished right behind his teammate Ryan Sieg. This kid is for real. And there is a world of difference between a driver who gets up there by just punting people out of the way and a driver that gets up there by actually passing people, by actually clawing his way through there. We talk about during today's Cup Series race and seeing the tire fall off and drivers able to kind of charge their way up there. Retzlaff, I thought, was even more impressive. And again, the RSS team has shown a lot of improvement this year. I think that tide has lifted all boats. But given the fact that this is only his 2nd career start, and he was already so fast out of the box at Phoenix, only to have the car kind of fail on him at the end, this time around he has the pit crew kind of struggle. And again, they didn't know what to expect. They're just trying to get the kid some laps, but they didn't know that he was going to be quite this fast. I think it's very clear, and the broadcast was right to point this out, that they're going to have to find a really good pit crew for this kid. For I believe he's got another 8 starts this year in that team. It's going to be exciting. I got to look up his schedule and see if it's going to be any of the races that we'll be covering this year. I think that would be fantastic. But I think that kid, and I know it's very early on, and NASCAR's had its share of drivers that show a lot of promise in unusually quick manners and then maybe just kind of drop off a bit. But I'm not saying put him in the Cup Series immediately, but I certainly hope he gets some more Xfinity Series starts. I think he's at least deserved getting that notice there. I don't know what's going on with the rest of this season in the 38 car. There's been a lot of kind of moving teams back and forth. CJ McLaughlin among the other drivers that kind of bring sponsors along with them. Of course, Retzlaff has brought his own backing on there. But I was very impressed. I thought that made the charge right from the beginning of the race, when he was already so far back in the lineup there. starting originally to the 10th spot, but then losing some spots and then clawing his way back in there. He just kept doing it over and over again, just really smooth. Never saw him beat up, knock another car out of the way. Didn't see his car trashed at the end of the race. Didn't have any issues with the brakes exploding like what happened with Noah Gragson. Those are things that are very hard to come by, especially from younger drivers these days, who tend to be, again, much more the Ty Gibbs or John Hunter Nemechek kind of competitor who will just knock the hell out of you, and that's it. Very rare that you get a guy that can just drive around you and also just stay calm and just not, okay, you have a bad pit stop. It would have been well within his right for him to just be screaming at the pit crews like, what are you guys doing? And this and that. Never came off that way. I didn't listen to his radio as much. But I think if he was doing that, I don't think he would have as successfully been able to climb through the field there. So shout out to Parker Retzlaff. I'm looking forward to more starts out of him. And, hopefully we can look back on this video here when he ends up getting his first victory and say that we were all talking about him back then. So kudos to him. Kudos also to Brandon Brown for getting the 8th place finish out there. I believe that was his second straight finish of 8th at Richmond. So it was a great showing for him. Mason Massey also tying his second best finish by finishing 17th. This is another guy who has been able to capitalize a lot on his efforts for DGM racing with Mario Gosselin. Massey got his career best finish at Atlanta earlier this year. Much like Kurt Busch in this today's race here, I still think back to his race at Bristol in 2020, where he missed the start of it because of a mechanical issue, got back out there and actually dropped Michael Lynette to last place. I thought that was a very impressive run out there. We actually talked about that back at Fontana after qualifying. But I think it's great that he's able to get these other good runs out there and kind of make a name for himself as well. On that same note, we saw a couple of other debuts. Retzlaff was not his debut. It was his second start, as mentioned. But of course, valuable laps turned, both by Raja Carruth as well as Derek Griffith, driving for Alpha Prime Racing and the Sam Hunt team, respectively. I think that both of them did a great job, just kind of staying out of the way, trying to get as many laps in as possible. Nobody's expecting them to win right out the box. But clearly for the both of them, you could tell how much it meant to them. They were able to compete out there. I think Raja in particular was getting a lot of camera time. So it was good to see, especially for the Alpha Prime team, since their second entry missed the show. Howie DeSavino was trying to make his debut as well. Unfortunately, didn't qualify for the race. But the 44 team finishing in the 24th spot, 2 spots ahead of Griffith. So both of them about on the same level. And I think that's a good start there. And Richmond, with the long green flag runs and tire management being such an issue this entire weekend, not exactly the easiest place to get your start. But I think that both of them, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. And if they can go up there and maybe have a run like Retzlaff has in the near future, who knows what we're going to get on that. But all of this was different from our last place finisher, who was Brennan Poole, who after nearly getting his first last place run, I believe at Vegas, before Joe Graff Jr. had the lug nut penalty, this time did secure his first last place finish in any Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series race that's more than 100 starts. Combined between the 3 series, this being with the Mike Harmon effort. They had a rear gear issue, but it was not for a lack of trying. It ended up being that he was actually kind of clocking in nearly half the race distance, which was the second most laps completed by an Xfinity Series last place finisher, with 112 laps complete on that, trailing Chad Fincham, who was 4 laps down when he was disqualified at Richmond for failing rear heights a couple years ago. But Poole, you hate to see the Mike Harmon team struggle, but it was good to see them actually qualify for the race, which has been very difficult for them this year. We still did not see both Jimmy Means Racing as well as the Bassett Brothers team make the show. Both of them sent home. The Means team has come excruciatingly close these last 2 races between Harrison Rhodes' effort. I believe he was just about 800ths off. David Pequeen, shout out to him for chronicling what happens in qualifying very well. I think for us 9-to-5ers here, I think that's always a great way to be able to catch up on what's happening there from one day to the next. But a great run for him there, not quite in the show. Gar Robinson, very close in the same sense at COTA last week on the road course. Both of them just missing the show. Hopefully they get another chance in these next couple of rounds here, whether it's going to be Martinsville or Talladega in a couple weeks, since Xfinity does run the Bristol Dirt Race coming up here in the meantime. But yeah, and issues there for Poole there. They tried to work on the car behind the wall. Kyle Sieg had a lot of issues at the beginning of the race there, but ends up getting past Poole there, dropping him to the 38th spot. Ryan Vargas with a fuel filler that apparently got stuck in the hole on his car there, cost him a few laps, finishes the race 7 laps down to the 36th spot. And again, with only Kyle Sieg and Brennan Poole out of the race, it really, you couldn't have any more of a situation there where anybody else could have a decent run. You know, you have a driver that has some kind of a problem there, and if you have even the slightest problem, you're going to end up in the bottom 5, and unfortunately, that can sometimes conceal what would have been a promising start before that. So kind of looking back at some of the other runs back there, Kyle Weatherman finishing 28th for Jesse Iwuji's team. I think that was a great pickup by Iwuji's team. Apparently, according to reports, I think on their Facebook page, Kyle Weatherman had personally been taking a lot of work on the front end geometry of Iwuji's car, said that it was just completely wrong. So they were just working on that, getting those cars faster. Of course, we've seen that 34 car really struggle for speed this year. Iwuji himself, I think, is still getting his feet under him in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. And obviously, they're going to try to diagnose the best run that what they can get out of these cars to get the best run they can. But sometimes bringing in another driver with more experience. Weatherman is a very hands-on guy, kind of like Bailey Curry as well, back when they were teammates of Mike Harmon's team. I know Curry did a lot of hands-on work with his 74 car last year, which is why it was so frustrating when they had that battery issue at Texas that ended up dropping him out before even completing a lap. But Weatherman this year, with the great runs he's had for Mario Gosselin's team, unfortunately the 92 team has had to scale back with sponsorship issues. That ended up securing the second starting spot for the second SS Green Light team. Of course, there was that controversy back at Fontana when Joe Graff couldn't qualify that car because the seat wasn't adjusted properly. This time, David Starr back in the car. Both cars did qualify for the race, so that's certain to help them. But at the same time, that's going to be a continuing struggle there for some of these other operations. And of course, Gosselin's team, I think you got to feel for them because they've got some talent over there that are able to, on occasion, really churn out top 10 runs at places, not just road courses, which seems to be kind of their bread and butter, but then sometimes at the super speedways and the short tracks, they've been really good to see there too. But Weatherman, I think, is a great pickup for Iwuji. I'm hopeful that they're going to be able to show some more measured improvement. They may not get up to Mario Gosselin's effort there, but if they can start getting some top 20s, I think that would be a huge turnaround for that program. And then starting off with a 28th place run within 4 laps of the race winner, I think that's a good place to start, especially with, again, a race with such long green flag runs there. Ryan Preece back in the 16th spot, had to drop to the back of the field there, and ends up having to kind of claw his way back into it. I'm sure was hoping to get a better finish than that in his first Xfinity race in quite some time, but still, decent showing there. Again, I will admit that I was very skeptical going into this year about this reserve driver contract that Preece has signed, but it seems like he's landing in the right places. I mean, getting Stewart-Haas equipment, with this Xfinity ride, getting in the Stewart-Haas equipment at Rick Ware Racing, and now being able to do some other truck races, which he had already done so well in last year. Maybe it's a better situation. I would have loved to have asked him back at the Coliseum. It didn't enter my mind at the moment that it was most appropriate to say, really, what is preferable? I mean, I'm not sure if he would have given me a clear answer to it, but what is preferable between having a full season ride, guaranteed that you're in every cup race, driving for a relative mid-pack team as in the second JTG Daugherty entry, versus being affiliated with Stewart-Haas, still working with mid-pack teams part-time, but maybe having an outside possibility at something more happening at Stewart-Haas, which is preferable. I'm pretty sure he would have given me the political answer and just said that, well, clearly this is a better situation. But I would have been interested to hear his reasoning on that. So, hopefully we'll find out some more information on that the days and weeks ahead there. Anthony Alfredo just outside the top 10. Kind of like the paint scheme when Larry's Hard Lemonade, the former sponsor from the Brandon Built Motorsports team there, signing with the 23 car. They always have kind of a nice looking scheme from one time to the other. It's unfortunate what happened at the 68 there as to sponsorship, but good to see that it's still at least helping a team that, once again, has been, I think, probably one of the most surprising mid-pack Xfinity teams. That 23 is there at Our Motorsports, although this time finishing one spot behind Jeb Burton, who had to start at the back of the field after slapping the wall, finishing in the 11th spot there. I haven't been watching that 27 team as closely. Jeb trying to make the best out of a situation after winning his first race with Colleague and then getting squeezed out. But I think, if he can, if that 27 is able to be as competitive as the 23, we're really seeing a lot of drop off from Brett Moffitt in comparison to the 0-2. Certainly when there was a single car operation, they were doing great. But even in the early times as a 2-car operation, he was still the flagship entry. That just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. I would still argue the 23 is probably the best car at that list. The 27 catching up very quickly on that to be the second best. But Moffitt here finishing in 25th, still getting sponsorship and still getting the laps completed out there, but not nearly the great runs that we've seen out of him at the last couple of seasons. I think that's a little bit troubling there. At the same time, hopefully things turn around for them as well. But your bottom 5 in the Xfinity race, Brennan Poole in last place, Kyle Sieg next to last with the engine problem after his multiple other issues there. Kyle wanted to pack up a bit earlier in that, but the team was able to get back out there and get around Poole. Vargas in the 36th spot, Stephen Parsons in 35th, and Joey Gase rounding out your bottom 5 here at the same time. So we'll probably go ahead and do our trivia segment here. Let me make sure I got, if you have any other situations that are going on there. Not sure what they're seeing. I'm just seeing Johnny's comment here about Howie DeSavino there. Yeah, I didn't see if he didn't have sponsorship or anything like that. It'd be unfortunate if there was a situation with that too. But it was still a shame that he missed the show. I think Xfinity Series is really stepped it up here with the actual competition there. So I think that'd be interesting to see. But certainly seeing qualifying in person for the Xfinity Series at Fontana, there's a lot of teams that are pretty close to each other, and I know it's easy to kind of pick on a team like Carl Long's team or Mike Harmon's team out there, but they've closed the gap a lot these last couple of years, and maybe scaling back to just one entry is going to help them a lot more here. And I think that'll be something kind of exciting to see as well. I don't think we're hearing much more out of the 74 car for Mike Harmon's team versus Carl Long's team trying to run the 13 here and there. JJ Yaley getting decent sponsorship for the 66, and I think Poole is a great improvement in talent for the Mike Harmon team. Get somebody that's a little bit more experienced, especially having driven for Chip Ganassi's team in the past. Hopefully that helps both programs. But I do think with qualifying being the way it is and the number of teams out there, it's going to continue to be a struggle for both those organizations the rest of the season, especially Harmon's program. So we'll see what happens on that. Maserati 9, did I do the last place for the Cup race? Absolutely. Yep, I did the back and forth there about Greg Biffle during the race broadcast there as well. So unofficially, Greg Biffle, your last place feature for today, pending, of course, post-race inspection. And we'll see if there's some other kind of situation with that as well. I'm going to go ahead and pull up Pockrass's feed here at the same time while we're doing our trivia segment here tonight. We got interviews with Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick and William Byron on Pockrass's Twitter feed there as well. So we'll check out from there. I don't know. I don't remember how much I mentioned this in last week's show. And it's now been now been a solid week, so I know it's old news at this point. But yeah, I'll tell you what, that the Oscars. I guess I'll just leave it there. Well, can't really just leave it there. I tell you, every year something unexpected and weird happens, and I know I was probably one of maybe like 17 people watching it live there after the show last week. But you never know what's going to happen one way or the other there. It's unfortunate what took place in that show there. I guess I don't feel like going too far down that road, but one thing I will say is that, again, watching the Oscars from one year to the next, I'm really wondering what the Oscars are going to be like next season. So I don't know. I'd honestly be surprised if Chris Rock wasn't going to be the host next year. which probably would be a good return to normalcy. I think that's been a big problem with the Oscars the last few years is they don't have one main host out there anymore. You know, your times you have Billy Crystal or somebody else out there. So yeah, but that's kind of a, that's kind of a different situation there. But yeah, I don't know. Crazy times there. There's not too much I can add that already hasn't been said already. I know already tweeted about it this week here. You know, I do think that there's a sense of decorum in disagreeing with people that maybe was perhaps illustrated best in what happened there. But you know, there's already been plenty of light cast that direction, and I guess we'll cast that elsewhere on the show here. So we'll jump into our trivia segment here. If you guys have any other questions about what happened in the Cup Series or the Xfinity race or anything else you want to talk about here, whether it's other projects you got working on or just other questions you may have, don't be a stranger. Go ahead and mention it in the comments. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and do our usual late 90s trivia guide here. This is, again, the old Trivial Pursuit Tiger Electronics deal. We're going to do some more questions from this. I think we had some really good questions last week on the CODA show here. So we'll see if we get some more this week. Go ahead and mention in the categories here which category you'd like. Categories, again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Categories, once again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So that's kind of been the, that'll be the subject for here at the same time. Let's see. What's your relation to the blue 51 that's everywhere on your channel? Let's see. On my... Oh gosh. I was just thinking. I thought it was the graphics. Yeah. The picture that you have on this, I guess it shows on this screen here instead of this at the start. That was actually a picture I took of J.J. Yaley when he finished last at Sears Point. He was absolutely exhausted that day, but there was some kind of an issue with the Rick Ware entry there. But he was very cool. I mean, I talk with Yaley pretty much every time I cover one of these races in person. It seems like we always cross paths. I think we even crossed paths at Fontana this year. But on that day, unfortunately, they had some kind of a mechanical issue there. 51 pulled into the garage area. And if you see the left side of that shot, that's Yaley getting cooled down there. They gave him some ice packs as they were trying to kind of figure out what was going on with the car. And I did end up taking that picture there in the shot. I think that captures really, you know, again, you know, it's frustrating to finish last. It's not a great moment there, but again, you know, to be in the field, to be qualified for the race, you know, that's still an accomplishment. And there is a story behind that. Just like in that, I think it was 2019, the year before the 2020 race got canceled, that happened in. So if you check out the article on that, you'll get the full context for that story there as well. So that'll definitely be on there too. There we go. Yeah. How many words is the Xfinity Atlanta script at now? We're over 4,100 words now at this point. I think the problem with that script, I'll tell you this, like, I wanted to have it just be on the Atlanta race. And I was like, well, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to talk about. And then I was like, well, there's probably some other information I could bring up for context. And then I get all these other comments and stuff on it where I think people are not understanding what I'm trying to do here, that I'm not just saying, oh, well, these older clips are good because they're old and they're never going to be good anymore. And these new races are terrible because they're never going to be this. And it's like, no. I'm trying to make clear that you can learn from history, that you can learn from older clips and apply it to today. So this video, it is going to have a script, and it's not going to be like the other ones where I just have title cards on there. And I thought that was going to be a way to make it go over a little smoother, but this has been an ongoing issue from one point to another, whether it's been an article or whatever. So in this one, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm showing you this. This is why what I'm showing you is good. This is why what I'm showing you here is bad. And this is how common it is. I think what's going to be frustrating, and I'm anticipating this already, is I think a lot of people are going to see these clips and say, oh, well, this is just one moment you took out of context, or this is just one moment where it didn't work out. I think one moment could be really illustrative of a problem. And I'm going to try to put as many clips as possible to kind of, show you what I'm talking about. But do I really have to play an entire 3-hour race and go through it one moment at a time and say this works and that doesn't work and this works and that doesn't work? No, I don't think I need to. I think I just need to bring up clips and then you can look for them. I think some of the interesting comments I did get on those videos on parts 1 and 2 is people noticing it. Like you'll see that, I'm talking about like people just not talking about the play-by-play 2 laps into the race, and then people are like, oh, come on, that's not happening, you're exaggerating. And then people start watching the races, and then 2 laps into the race, they're not talking about the play-by-play, and it's like, oh my God, this is actually happening. That's what I hope kind of comes about of it. But I think what I'm also concerned about is I think that there does have, I think that professionals should understand that, they're not immune from criticism. Like, and I don't believe all criticism is just, oh, I'm just being negative and I'm just trying to get a rise out of you. It's like, no. I think you can be better. I think you can be better. And I know you can be better. Some of these announcers, especially Rick Allen and Adam Alexander, I'm giving you a little bit of a preview of it here. They used to have really good broadcast calls. They used to be really, excited about calls that I wouldn't have had any problem with. You listen to Adam Alexander on TNT, you listen to Rick Allen in his Truck Series broadcast, or Vince Welch in his Pit Road reporting. And I don't have any problem with those. What I'm worried about is I think some people are probably going to take this very personally. And that's not what I want. But again, there's only so much I can do about that. If people are going to take things personally and they're not going to learn from it, well, then that's for them to deal with. There's nothing I can do about that. I can try to be as persuasive as I can. Nobody likes being critiqued. Nobody likes having, somebody look over their shoulder. But when you make yourself a public figure, when you make yourself and hold yourself out as a professional, you're not immune from that. And I think people need to be more critical of it and hope for better. I think we hear too much about, I think NASCAR has bent over backwards, literally, in every other aspect with this, whether it's, an issue with how the cars race, how the cars look, what tracks we go to, how often we go to these tracks, every little thing. It just seems like broadcasting, especially a TV broadcast, they just kind of skate by and they don't get talked about. And I do think it does require an understanding of the mechanics of it. And I'm not saying I have the best grasp of it, but I do have, I've seen enough of these and have dissected them in such a way that I feel like I'm able to say, okay, here's kind of what I'm seeing, and put the ball back in their court. And if that's not what's happening, then they can say, okay, well, that's not the way it's going. We're actually being told this. Then I can learn something and I can respond again. And maybe there'll be another video and we'll just keep going back and forth. And maybe the net effect of that is going to be something positive, but it's going to take somebody to actually say it, because and we saw it again today. We saw it during all these broadcasts. You have issues on the directorial side with the camera shots, and you have issues on the play-by-play side with what they do with it. And those are two separate problems, and they may be two ships passing in the dark. They may not have as much to do with each other, but they both can have problems. They both can have issues that need to be resolved that can make the broadcast better than what they are. And that's all I'm asking, is just for any kind of improvement. We can't have Bob Jenkins anymore. We can't have Eli Gold anymore. And we may never have Alan Bestwick in the booth again. It's unfortunate, but I think you can take the current staff, give them some pointers, and maybe it'll be better. And that'd be great. You wouldn't have to. I'm not calling for anybody's job. I'm not calling for anybody to be ridiculed. But I do think that we need to be honest about what kind of broadcasting we're seeing, because otherwise they'll just say, oh, it's just the haters. Oh, this is just, they're just haters and whatever. I think it's unfortunate that there's so much out there that makes people think that, but I do think that criticism, still has its place, and I think that they're not immune from it. So that's what I want to accomplish in this video. I don't know how successful it's going to be at it. I've been anguishing about the script here these last couple weeks. I'll probably end up recording it this week and just going with it, because I think the more that I play around with it, it's going to come out more of just a mishmash, but I think we'll get there. So I think it'll be good. So I'm excited to hopefully get that done. I think that'll be better. Where are we on the broadcast, the categories here? Okay. Beast of Metal, thank you for keeping track of it here. I see your latest post here. We got 3 for teams, Pitts wild card with 2, and NASCAR tracks 1. So that would be another one there too. Do I think Andy Lally would translate to an oval death killer? Maybe. I'd be willing to try him. I thought he was really good. Ralph Sheheen. Yes. Ralph Sheheen I thought was great. Lee Diffie, don't have a problem with it. He does great IndyCar broadcasts. I thought he was fine with NASCAR. I think people get a little closed-minded about the accent, which is, come on, you had David Hobbs in the booth for years. I mean, I don't think an impenetrable accent is a bad thing. You can have people with distinctive voices. I mean, listen to Howard Cosell or Chris Economaki, people with, non-traditional voices, but just fantastic storytellers. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see. I think that would be great. Ralph Shaheen, I'm a big fan of too. I mean, I think he's another California boy, if I remember correctly. But one thing, when he took over the TNN Summer Series for a while, he would actually, he would shout, he would tend to shout. He'd be closer to kind of a Formula One announcer. But it wasn't inappropriate. He would only do that if something like, really shocking was happening. Like when Kyle Busch got wrecked out of the lead in the last corner at Daytona, and he's still describing a play-by-play of the actual accident as it was taking place. I thought that was great. Not everybody does that. They'll just say, "Oh, there's cars everywhere," and then they'll just read off numbers or something instead of names. It's a different talent there. Who was NASCAR's biggest hothead like Lyle Alzado levels of rage? There's a deep cut there, Alex. Hard to say, but yeah, I don't know. I think you're probably asking the wrong person there in terms of like, I think I'd be very interested to hear from like a crew chief what they thought was like the most hot-headed driver, or a crew member or somebody that was actually a target of their rage. I think that would be kind of interesting. But I don't know. My first thought was Kyle Busch, but then I think of Kurt Busch and just how much they just scream over the radio during any of that. And then before that, I think of Robbie Gordon and Jimmy Spencer. I think Emp Lemon did a fantastic job kind of capturing the attitudes of a lot of those drivers there and kind of contextualizing them in their most famous scuffles in his revenge video. I'd vote for any one of them. I think Robbie Gordon there's more of a method to his madness there, versus Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch just literally just screaming and ripping people apart over the radio. I think that would probably be one of the others too. So that would be another one. Oh gosh, Dave Despain, all these other ones. My goodness. Yeah, there's a lot of other ones that you can look at too. But yeah. But I'm gonna be very interested. This next video I think will be good. I know it's distracted me a bit from some other projects I want to work on, but I think it's a compelling enough topic to go into, especially when, and this is the other thing too, the other thing I don't want to have happen after this video comes out. I don't want this to be a distraction from how much positive stuff has happened in the sport. I think that there's a lot of good things that are happening. I like that these new teams are coming in. I like that the Xfinity series and the Truck series in particular are so strong, that we're getting a lot of new drivers out there that are getting their shots. I think things could certainly be better in that respect. I think the capping the number of starters in the Cup series is not sustainable, because you're creating a situation where those opportunities to get into Cup are limited, outside of being in an open team, although the open teams don't make any money, so they don't have an incentive to do it. So they're not going to get these guys up there. But I think we're on our way. I think it's an exciting time in the sport. I think we're seeing some net effects of it here. I think we've still had some decent racing this year out of the Cup Series, which is long overdue. The Xfinity Series has been kicking the Cup Series butt these last few years, which I never would have expected to see. I never followed the Xfinity Series in its heyday when you had like Dale Jr. and Adam Petty and those others. Like I really didn't watch it. Back then, I just watched the Cup Series. I didn't watch Xfinity. I didn't watch Truck. I always viewed that, it was easier, as a kid to just say, this is the race this weekend. It's just one race and that's it. So that was much more my experience. I didn't get really a good appreciation for those other two series really until probably the last like 15, 20 years. That's much more recent here. So, probably more like 15 years, I would say. Maybe not. I wouldn't say 20 years. That's a bit far. So I don't know, but that's another one to kind of look at too. But yeah, but I think again, that's what I'm really kind of looking at. Get the broadcast up to the same level that everything else is. Look how much has changed with the car. Look how much has changed with the tracks we're going to, the way the racers are structured, which sponsors are even involved in the sport, how active people are on social media. I mean, massive changes have happened. But I think the TV broadcasts are stuck in this early 2000s attitude, and they just haven't changed. I mean, okay, they'll have a big flashy, post-race show thing that's against a green screen, but nobody cares about that. if anybody wants to get news, they're going to get it from Bob Pockris or Gluck or somebody else, or Jenna Fryer or Clara B. Lang, and that's it. They don't need their show to just distill it down for you, because then other people are out there, like myself, that just make their own content out of it. And so, that's just kind of the direction. I don't think it's responded well enough to it. I don't know if this will be a part of my analysis, but I mean, it'll be in there. I think it's much more what they are doing versus what they're not doing. But that's kind of what we're looking at. Anyway, I'm going too far down the road there on that. Let's get some trivia questions here for you guys. Where are we on that? Are we still? Do we still have teams ahead here, Beast of Metal? Thank you for keeping track again on that. I saw you had that earlier. We had 3 for teams. 2 for pits in the wild card, and 1 for NASCAR the tracks. Do we have any other changes on that? Y-tubers too. Okay, I'm too old to understand this. I know what a VTuber is, but what's a, or I guess if you're just talking about YouTubers. Okay, well, yeah, that would make sense. I'm sorry, I was looking at that too literal, Irvin. There, you're absolutely right. No change. Okay, we'll do teams here for that. I think that was the first category on that. So we'll do some teams questions here's for you guys. But yeah, absolutely, YouTube has changed the landscape on that, and it's already different from when I was back in. I mean, 2006, people like me were still holding the digital camera up to the screen trying to upload videos on there that way, because I didn't know what a DVD ripper was. I didn't know what a a video editor was or anything like that. I had to kind of learn that along the way. But then there's differences along the way there too. But that's a whole discussion for another day, I suppose. All right, teams. Let's go into the first teams question here. What make of car did the King drive when he started racing full-time in 1960? What make of car did the King drive when he started racing full-time in 1960? So don't look it up. Try to guess it there. We got the code red and the Tide Cup here. What make of car did the King drive when he started racing full-time in 1960 is our first question. Yeah, Irvin. Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, I was thinking VTubers, because my feed has just been choked with all these clips of the anime girls and stuff that are listening to audio clips and stuff like that on there. I'm probably letting a little bit too much information in here, but yeah, YouTubers in general. Yeah, exactly. Like Eric Estep and Darian and Danny and all those guys. Yeah, you know, I still feel like the Darrell Waltrip of that group. Like I still think like I'm kind of a bridge between kind of the aspect that kind of aspire, that's I don't attract the same kind of audience from that. But it's different. We all cover it differently and everything. But I'm kind of the older one in there. I always felt that way about Darrell Waltrip back in the 90s. He always seemed like he was marketed as kind of one of the guys that was competitive each week. But, already by 92, he already won his last race. So you think about like 95, 96, he wasn't really like completely over the hill, like, Richard Petty type. But it was tricky to market him because he was so much older than a guy like a Dale Earnhardt or a Rusty Wallace or even Bill Elliott or something, or at least he came off that way. And I think it was very hard to market him in the sport. And that's kind of where I feel my place is on YouTube. I feel like it's hard to kind of market what I do because I don't do, well, I do, it's not like I don't care about the way the sport is now. That's why I like doing these streams, to be able to get a firsthand reaction, kind of talk about it, and then place it within the context of the sport's history. Certainly the way that like Eric does it, or the way that Danny does it, or Darian, or the others, they have a different approach there too, and it's great what they've been able to accomplish too, because they got great audiences on that too. So I think that the important thing, I think, is understanding what your angle is and what you're able to accomplish with it. And I'm very happy with what I've been able to do on this side here too. I mean, we still got 50 people in here, so that's fantastic. So that's we have some good discussions there along the way, so that's good to see. Yeah, Death Killer, exactly. Between the beat reporters and the YouTubers, exactly. That's kind of. I don't feel like I fit perfectly in either one. Like I cover this. I do the beat reporter stuff, but I only do it like part time, and I do the YouTube stuff, and even that's really only part time because I don't produce as much content as the other guys. So I think that's a fair comparison. I think that's a good way to put it. To put it there, I think I don't fit neatly into one or the other. So I try to kind of just do a mishmash of both, and I think maybe that's kind of where it's a challenge to kind of get a lot of attention to either the YouTube channel or the website. But yeah, but that's fine. I mean, you're gonna shave off a little bit of the group that's interested in more of the website, the Twitter stuff, versus the side that's interested in more of the YouTube and the produced content side of it there. And yeah, I think that is that. But I do think that Daryl Waltrip comparison is that too, because he was really the bridge in that era between the Richard Petty and Bobby Allison era and the Dale Earnhardt and the Rusty Wallace era. And he tried to kind of fit into both. And I mentioned this in the video when I talked about NASCAR in the 90s. I thought that he didn't really fit into either one, but I think that's kind of where it is. But it's fun to be in that position because then actually you can kind of try to do a little bit here or there. You know, we can talk about the beat reporter stuff in here, and then we go over to the track, and then we talk about the YouTube stuff there. I mean, it happens, and that's fine. So, you know, that's cool. By the way, still counting down the days till Sears Point, and that's going to be outstanding. I still have to remind myself every time that we're going to get the truck series out there. I think that's going to be incredible. I don't think I've actually watched any of those, it's 3 or 4 truck series races all the way through, because it used to be a standalone weekend in October. We just went to the Cup Series weekend back then. So that's going to be an entirely new experience out there. Really excited to see that too. Let me get the answer to the question here. I know I've been stretching that a bit. What make of car did the King drive when he started racing full-time in 1960? That is our next question. And I saw we got a lot of comments here for Chrysler, Plymouth, Oldsmobile, Plymouth piece of junk, Oldsmobile, Ford, maybe Oldsmobile, Ford, Mopar. Yeah, that's kind of a thing like that. Let's see. 10 top 5. 10 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and 69 DNFs. Nice. Yeah, well, you know, it's tricky. I think that is a challenge. I mean, I'm actually dealing with this in the Derek Cope book too, because there's one chapter in it that I'm having an issue with because it is very stat heavy, and I'm worried that it's going to be an issue for people that maybe aren't as familiar with the sport. I try to make the books as approachable as possible because so much of my background is, you know, being the one NASCAR fan in a group. So I'm always in a situation of explaining what this is or what that is. And I feel that translates in the book a little bit. And maybe it comes off rudimentary to longtime fans. But this particular section, that's one that I've been really chewing over lately. But I think it'll get smoothed out well enough in the edits. I have a feeling my editor might pick up on this as well. So we'll see. But that'll be in there. Hey there, Kyle. Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we were just talking about, doing the coverage at Sears Point. I know you're excited about it too. But yeah, we'll probably end up seated together again there. So that'll be awesome. I like the media center there too. I don't know what you think on that. I think that they did a nice job kind of reorganizing it there a little bit. But great thing with Sears Point is the media center is right next to the garage area, so that's the fun part. What make of car did the King drive when he started racing full-time in 1960? The answer is Plymouth. Plymouth. Those of you with the Mopar guesses were very close there, but I think a few of you did get Plymouth. Jeffrey Robertson, you were actually right too with the Plymouth piece of junk. But Austin Foster, looks like you were the first one there to guess Plymouth on that one. Truck Series in Charlotte will be your first, Irvin. Okay, right on. There you go. Yeah, Beast of Metal, you're right. Yeah, again, there's different approaches. I think it's interesting to see the best thing with NASCAR, and I've said this a lot on the show, is that there's so many aspects to it. You could completely hone in on one really small aspect and find out there's a ton of information on there. I mean, look at how much stuff there is about last place finishers. I mean, it's been an extraordinarily rich subject, and I still feel like I've only scratched the surface on it. You know, I try to do like the stat of the day thing and stuff like that. You know, that's the thing. And yeah, if your focus is going to be on, you know, drivers that struggle, or maybe drivers that people forget, or if it's on pit crew members or pit crew strategy, or specific races or a specific track. Yeah, I mean, you could pick any one of those things and and just hone in on it and do as much research as you want on it, and it could build an entire brand off of it. And I think that's fantastic. And I think we're still just kind of realizing the potential of that, because there's a lot of people out there that are, again, I think that's important because, let's face it, if you're trying to be, a beat reporter and covering every little aspect of it and getting the information out there that quickly, you're not going to do it quicker than Bob Pockrass. You're just not. I mean, Pockrass is an exceptional person. I've had the good fortune of speaking with him. He's a great guy. I got no quarrel with him. I think that he is singularly committed to following this as close as possible, to asking the questions when they need to be asked and getting them out there. He's not the only one. I think Claire B. Lang has probably got the corner on, the radio work. I think she does a tremendous job on Dialed In. I think that, Gluck is, Jeff Gluck's really good at what he does with his 12 questions segment, and kind of doing more of the driver profile aspect, and so you see that from one set, one group to the next, that people really kind of specialize in their aspects. And I think that's where people need to be, because the internet is all about having a custom made experience. You got to really stand out somehow. I mean, and it's very hard to do that because it feels like everybody's done everything, but that's not true. Everybody hasn't done everything. You may have a way of looking at it or a personal experience growing up that you can bring to bear on it that is entirely different from everybody else. The I Am Athlete podcast, I think, does a great job of, they're really engaging in when they talk with guys like Kyle Busch or Steve Phelps or so forth. They ask questions that maybe people hadn't thought of before. And so that's good to see. So, my message always is that, if you're interested in getting into the sport and you feel that you have something that you'd like to contribute, or maybe that you feel other people have overlooked, then yeah, I'd say go for it. And it takes a lot of work. It's not easy, but it can be fulfilling. And if you're able to commit to it, then maybe further down the line, people are saying like, well, wait a minute, I want, what's going on with this? We need to talk to so-and-so, and this person will have that information. I think that's where the future of a lot of this is going, and not just in sports, but probably, in journalism in general. I think, and again, this is from somebody who never went to journalism school. I didn't learn the basics there. I had to learn, from my mistakes, really. And there were plenty of those. And so still making them. But yeah, that's kind of where that is too. But yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. When Pockrass lost the job what was it? He was with ESPN, and then Fox Sports picked him up. Look, I'm as critical of Fox Sports as anybody else, but I mean, that was a huge get. He was going to be. I'm glad they saw the value in him that a lot of his followers do too, because I think Gluck mentioned this at one point that he's been dreading the possibility of NASCAR not having him provide the coverage that he's done. So I say, yeah, pay the man, get him out there, and make sure he can do what he does. Look, compared to what I do, I mean, look, these races are still going to happen whether somebody's watching last place or not. And I think a lot of these teams will probably be like, oh, great. They don't have to see that white hat walking along there too. But if you don't have Pockrass out there, there's some things that are essential. So yeah, but I'm happy with what we got here. And I think the best is yet to come. So I think we're getting there. And so Sears Point's definitely going to be another thing to look at. Let me get the next question here on this too. What year? Okay, we got a year question here. What year did famed team owners Holman and Moody split up? Here we go. Okay, we are getting some good questions here. What year? Doesn't say what decade. So what year did famed team owners Holman and Moody split up? One race should be the day race, one should be a night race. Yeah, Kyle, I agree. I think, I was kind of surprised this wasn't a night race. I think last week I had when I was doing my lead off on the show, I was like, oh boy, we're going to do a night race next week. It's like, nope, another week after that. And refresh my recollection, is the Bristol Dirt Race, is that going to be a night race, or that's still during the day? I'm trying to remember. I should just look up the time, but I think I'm not sure what it is on that. Al, I saw your question there. Yeah, what matters more in a race, the TV ratings or the in-person attendance? Eh, I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I think I tend to believe the in-person attendance because I think the TV ratings are a means of getting you into the seats. That's what they should be. It's a means of saying, look at all the exciting things that happen. You look at all the exciting people that are involved in it. And and for like this amount on a ticket price, you could be there. You could eat junk food. You could sit in the grandstands. You could listen to the radio and find out what's happening. I think it's the in-person attendance. I really do. I think that that speaks to not only which tracks are more interesting than others, but it speaks to how effective the TV broadcast is being as an advertisement for the sport. I don't get why NASCAR has to feel the need to do these ads for itself when the broadcast should be doing that for them. They should be showing it. It's like, wow, look how awesome this is. And don't have Michael Waltrip just say, oh my gosh, like this is the most exciting thing ever, and this is the best. Da, 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 da. No. Show, don't tell. Show the action. Show the drivers. Show all the activities you can do. Don't just show like kids in the grandstands and then zoom in to Ryan Blaney's nostrils as he's exiting turn 3. Like actually talk to these people. Actually and show like it's like, don't you wish you were here? Like, it's like you're doing a broadcast from Disneyland, for Pete's sake. I mean, if you're gonna do that, you want to get it to the point where the kids want to go out there and go to, go see Mickey Mouse. So NASCAR needs to get to that point. And I think the TV broadcast can get a lot of inspiration from, the streaming services. And when you have people that binge TV shows, make it seem like a bingeable experience. I mean, nobody's going to sit down and, for 6 hours and watch 2 races, from start to finish, but maybe they'll tune into it, live for the same reason. They'll have an intro that they have a skip intro option or something. I don't know, but maybe we'll get there. What year did famed team owners Holman and Moody split up? We got guesses in the 60s and 70s, I see. We got 79. Night race for dirt. Okay, that's a good decision. I think that was a missed opportunity last year. But, of course, the rain screwed everything up. And we haven't seen the heat races. I guess they're still doing the heat races. Hopefully that still stays the same. And if it does, I hope Brad Means' team gets back out there because apparently Ryan Newman was very close to getting that 39 truck in there last year. I hope they get another shot at it this season. And I hope we see Norm. I was pleased to see that Norm Benning was starting to actually show, Norm's Twitter handle actually showed a thing about they were soliciting for sponsorship. Great. I'm glad they're still trying to get something going. I don't know if they still have the Nice truck from Phoenix, but I would anticipate that they turn up for Bristol. If Norm doesn't turn up for Bristol, I'm going to be very concerned about that team's prospects for this year because I don't see Norm skipping a dirt race. That would be shocking. Joe Pesci is a pit reporter. Yeah, there we go. That'll be fun. Okay, so let's see. Which year? So what year did famed team owners Holman and Moody split up? The answer is 1972. A few of you got that one. 72 is the answer. Maserati 9 just ahead of Tom and got those ones. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, Sunday night. That's weird. Okay. Last year, Dirt and Daytime had a Dust Bowl effect. That's true. It did. Yeah. No, that'd be exciting. That's going to be a fun one to cover again. It was good. It was good to cover the dirt race last year. I'm glad that the scanners still worked. I was worried that was going to be an issue. Certainly not covering it live is not ideal. And then, of course, it was rain delayed. But, that worked out, in that sense too. But, there you go. What soft drink sponsored the race where Jeff Gordon won his first Cup pole? What soft drink sponsored the race where Jeff Gordon won his first Cup pole? Oh, the indignity. What am I seeing here? I'm just kind of browsing the comments here in between here. 1 weekend closer to Sonoma, absolutely. Yeah, why does NASCAR have a 23 race schedule for the Truck Series? Why anything? The Truck Series does need to get back to its roots when it was just at the short tracks. Like I said, I didn't follow it as closely back then, but I was certainly aware of it. And they would run in, these absolutely teeny tiny little tracks, and but it was fantastic. Let's see. Byron needed 10 less laps. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. TBG T11. Alrighty. Okay, so looking at the comments here. What soft drink sponsored the race where Jeff Gordon won his first cup pole? We got guesses for Pepsi and Coke and Mellow Yellow and Mountain Dew and Fago and Czech Cola. To getting a wrong answer. Well, Alex, you don't have to be that hard on yourself. What soft drink sponsored the race where Jeff Gordon won his first cup pole? The answer is Mellow Yellow. The Mellow Yellow 500 at Charlotte. Fall race 1993. I think a few of you got that one there. Glenn 7000, you got it. That'll be another one on that too. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Alex Viveros. Thank you so much for the super chat here, man. You said you taped the Kyle Busch penalty. I have a photo with a tape from lap 244 to 246. Also, I was in a Discord where most of us did not know about the rule. Maybe instead of making a jingle for pre-race, explain this rule. Exactly, yeah. I mean, you know, again, I didn't watch the pre-race, so I'm not aware of like what they were doing, but I saw some of the screen caps, and this Tim and Eric awesome show stuff is not going to float with a broadcast of a race where people are doing a fundamentally dangerous activity for entertainment. I think it needs a little bit more professionalism there. But yeah, I'd be interested if you had you got photos of the tape from lap 244 to 246. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, it's an unfortunate situation there with Kyle Busch, and we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show there. But I think in the broadcast, and it if you were it sounds like from your description you were at the track there, so that's cool. But if you weren't, like, it seemed like I thought the broadcast, from what I could hear, they were doing a decent job explaining what the issue was with the tape, because I do think that a lot of the changes with the car, they haven't really gone into full in-depth as to why that's the case, at least not during the race broadcast. Even back at the Clash at the beginning of the year, I don't think that was really discussed as much, and certainly not discussed in terms of it being like some kind of a penalty or something of that nature. But yeah, I agree. I think that when the broadcast is focusing on doing like really goofy stuff that not even everybody really is into, it distracts from what, you know, they could be doing, which is actually informing us. And there's no shortage of stuff that they could be telling us about with this new car, with these new venues, or even returning venues where we're finally getting to see how these cars even compete on it. I mean, COTA may as well have been an inaugural race, given how different it was from when it was, you know, soaked in rain last year. You know, and the Bristol Dirt Race is going to be the same situation, with it being at night and hopefully with much better weather, and having the qualifying races and everything. Yeah, exactly. I think the rules, and I think bringing them up as you go along. I mean, you know, if the rule is going to be a big story in advance of the race, you should bring it up then. But if it is in some moment there, maybe have a graphic, or, you know, it used to be the Ford cutaway car and stuff used to be the great feature. Now they've kind of digitized that, which is unfortunate, because now you have kind of this extra degree of separation. It may be more efficient because now you have like a tablet you could poke at or something, or whatever, however Larry Mack is doing it these days. But yeah, I think that's where the focus should be. And it was nice to see at least Chad Knaus and Larry McReynolds kind of focus on that. I think they were really, and that was really their strength. I mean, that's kind of more their focus there. You know, but I think that was kind of, yeah, that's kind of where the direction needs to go. But yeah, thank you for the, definitely thank you for the super chat there too. I do think that was a big issue with that too. How popular was the truck series during the 2000s? I don't know. It seemed like it was on the rise. I mean, that was, of course, you know, 2000 was when they went to Daytona, and then I remember people were very outspoken about, you know, whether they should even be trying to run at those races or not. And now, of course, nowadays you got them even at Talladega, and you got them at these longer road courses and everything. I mean, it's pretty much, it becomes an accompanying event at these other ones. And I know that there's drawback to having a standalone event. I didn't really realize this till we covered Most Sport in 2019 that you really don't get the scanner audio. At least not from the way I was able to do it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't have an over-the-air scanner. I think I had just the regular Race View one back when that was still active, because COVID unfortunately pretty much knocked that whole business model out during all that. But maybe an over-the-air one would have worked better. But it's I don't know. Well, because I mean, actually, now that I think about it, the teams have to talk to each other somehow. But yeah, I'm not sure how that would have worked. I don't know if they had that same issue at Knoxville or some of these other ones where the truck series goes there by themselves, even though it's very rare that they do that now. But that'll be another one to kind of look at. Yeah, if you want to tag me on Twitter with the pictures, Alex, absolutely. I'd be interested in seeing that. But we'll hopefully have to get some more information on that too. And again, that's always a great thing with the site too, is I got their picture. I think it was, let me make sure I get it, credit the right source here. Going back down here, I just updated the article with this earlier today. Big thanks to CPK Diecast for tweeting his picture of Brennan Poole's car getting worked on in the garage area. I've actually since updated that article with that picture. And as I always say, I mean, if you guys are at the track at some time, I do maybe 5 or 6 races a year at most. It's probably gonna be less than that this season. But when I'm not at the track and you guys are, and you get some pictures of last place action, by all means, my DMs are open, and you know where to find me on Twitter. And I'm certainly happy to add pictures and, of course, give credit for anybody's pictures they want to have on the website there, because last place is definitely still an aspect of the sport that doesn't get shown that often there, and we still do that on this end here too. Alrighty. Let's do another question. We'll probably just do a couple more. I know it's been a little bit more of a long-winded show here tonight, but I hope you guys don't mind. Next question here. What owner hired Bobby Allison 2 years after firing Donnie Allison? Uh-oh, static. Do we have static? Ooh, we have static. Oh, that's not good. Hang on. I'm going to do the loading screen here, and we will see if we can fix that. Oh, just got staticky. That's not good. Hold on. Whoop. Okay. I think we're back. Do we still have static here? I had to just literally unplug the mic and plug it back in here. Mic went goofy. Okay, yeah. Thank you guys for letting me know. Okay, I'm checking this. I did have some problems with static when I was setting this up here earlier, and I had to unplug it again. I don't know what's going on. Might have to check my hub here after the show here. Maybe that thing's starting to fail on me. It's been pretty reliable. I've been pretty happy with it. It's your mic. It's loading music. It sounds just fine. Okay. Is it fixed? Are we good? Think it repent. I see you're here. We're good? I'm checking on here. Yeah, I see. I can see on the levels here when the static was starting to go. So that's. I appreciate you guys giving me the heads up, because I don't have a sense of how bad it is. Okay. We're almost done with the show here too. I think the microphone started to fall asleep here at a point, so we had to kind of figure that out. I do have kind of a weird plug. Well, lots of technical stuff on this side. Okay, we're good? Okay, we're good. All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off? We had the question here. What owner... Oh, yeah. What owner hired Bobby Allison 2 years after firing Donnie Allison? That's the question. Oh, we might have a call here. Might have a call. There it is. Yes, thank you very much. Pockra's post 6 minutes ago. Tech is complete, no issues. Hamlin is the winner. Truex and Suarez cars in R&D Center for further inspection. So yes, Hamlin is officially broken through with his first win this season and his first top 10 of the year. And we got stack. Of course. Okay, let's do this one. Oh, okay, went away. Okay, went away again. It must be this outlet. What I have here is I have two USBs on the side, and I have this one plug to extend this extender to plug into the mic, and it bends backwards, and I might need to change that input. I think this one's just not a success. Okay, it looks like it went away again. It's getting worse. Oh gosh, I don't see it on my mic here. As soon as I touch the desk, the start of the static again. Okay. All right, I'm not touching the desk. It's in that group of wires. It definitely is. Okay, we're going to have to really... How about... It's all clear again? Okay, yeah, I'm just checking it here. It seems like when it was a problem, it's pegging the audio there, but that's not on that. Okay. All right, well, we're going to wrap this up here real quick here then. So we'll do that. Okay, yeah, weird. All right. Well, sorry about that, folks. We're going to fix that, though. I do have an extra one of these adapters. I think I just need to use that, and hopefully that'll fix that problem. Bizarre. Okay. I'll have to re-listen to this here and see what that sounds like. What owner fired Bobby Allison 2 years... Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading it wrong. What owner hired Bobby Allison 2 years after firing Donnie Allison? The answer is Roger Penske. Roger Penske is the correct answer. Whatever you reached up and touched, yeah, it's definitely that cable. And it's bent over pretty far. I think that's... Oh, okay, I thought I was doing it again. All right. I'm not going to be able to trust it for the rest of this evening, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm glad that we've upgraded this now with the music to cut out the... we'll be right back. I probably have to have like a... of course, the loading thing I think is good enough for a technical difficulties one here. Hand signals next time to communicate to us the drivers do radio is bad. Exactly. Yeah, we'll have to pat on the side here versus the roof, or see if it's tight or it's loose. Alrighty, Roger Penske is the correct answer. Okay, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the show here before. Oh, okay, I thought it was coming back again. Before it comes back up again. Yeah, I think we'll figure that out there and get that straightened out. That'll be the first thing to do. But yes, congratulations, Denny Hamlin, on the win. Greg Biffle, your last place finisher for the first time since 2008, and that will do it for our show this week. So our next show is, in fact, going to be under the lights after the race at Martinsville. Hopefully, we don't have any issues with weather that weekend. We are going to have the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series in less than a week now. It'll be next Saturday. So that'll be another one to kind of look at there too. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We have the website, lastcar.info, the Patreon for bonus content at patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. And of course, my Twitter handle is @lastcaronbrock. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you at Martinsville. Now, hopefully this screen here does not have an issue. All right. Have a good evening, folks, and stay safe out there.